wasted more nights than you dare to count. You know it, no need to deny it. You've gone to bed with the feeling that something is wrong.
With the certainty that the day was just another chapter. Yet here you are, repeating the same routine, hoping that change will happen on its own. I'm going to tell you something you might not want to hear. Change is not a miracle, it's an assault. It doesn't come gently. It doesn't knock on the door politely. Either you take it by force, or it never comes. There's no middle ground, and if you keep waiting, hiding behind excuses and distractions, you'll stay exactly where you are. You have a life that doesn't fulfill you. You feel it deep in your chest every time you turn off the lights and face the silence. You don't need me to tell you this, but instead of doing something about it, you deceive yourself. You repeat the same lies. I'll start tomorrow. It's not the right time. I need to solve this or that first. And so the days go by, and so the years go by. But listen to me carefully. Tonight can be different. Tonight can be the turning point. Not because the universe has chosen you for something special, not because there's a magical sign waiting for you in the sky, but because you can decide for it to be so. Right now, without permission, without further delay. And here comes Tarantino because, contrary to what you think, your story is not written in stone. You can change the script, you can rewrite the plot, you can become the protagonist instead of remaining an extra in your own movie. But there's a price, and that price is the truth. The method is brutally simple. A notebook, a pen, and the silence of the early hours. 3 things, nothing more. You don't need a guru, you don't need another self-help book, you don't need to wait until you feel motivated. You just need to sit down, take a breath, and write. Write about what you're doing wrong, no filters, no sweeteners, no excuses you usually wrap yourself in to avoid facing reality. Because here's the problem. You don't change because you don't dare to look at yourself honestly. You prefer to avoid the mirror rather than accept what you see. Nietzsche said it clearly. Become who you are, but here's the catch. To do that, you first need to discover who you really are. And that's not done with motivational quotes or cheap positive thoughts. It's done with surgical brutality, with the ability to break down each mistake, each fear, each doubt that has brought you here. Dostoevsky warned, suffering is the most powerful tool to know yourself, and you've been running away from it. You've numbed it with distractions, with empty entertainment, with the false belief that if you ignore the problem long enough, it will disappear. It won't disappear. Change only happens when you decide to tear away the blinders and look at what's underneath. And what's underneath, if you're honest, is a disaster. But here's the important part. Disasters can be rebuilt, mistakes can be corrected, stories can be rewritten. Think of Tarantino, a regular guy with no connections, no clear path, but he had something most people don't have, an obsessive passion for the story he wanted to tell. And here's the key. His story, not the one the world expected from him, not the one his circumstances seemed to dictate, his. And you, what story are you writing? Is it yours, or is it a script imposed by others? The difference between those who change and those who stay stuck in mediocrity is simple. The former face themselves with the same rawness with which Tarantino writes his scripts. They don't allow themselves to soften reality. They don't cover up mistakes. They don't hide behind empty justifications. So here's the challenge. Tonight, when everyone is asleep, when the noise of the world fades away, take a notebook and write. No censorship, no mercy. Write everything you're doing wrong, every stupid decision, every fear that has held you back, every excuse you've used to avoid moving. Write until it hurts. And when it hurts, keep writing. Then, find the solutions. Don't try to justify anything. Don't tell yourself it's not that easy. Of course it's not easy. If it were easy, everyone would do it. But here's the part they don't tell you. You don't need to solve everything tonight. You only need to make one decision, a small decision, something concrete that you can do tomorrow to start changing the course. Because if you wait until you feel ready, you'll never be ready. If you wait for the fear to disappear, it never will. The only way to kill fear is to move despite it. And the only way to change your story is to grab the pen and rewrite it with your own hands. This is the truth no one tells you. You can change your life in a single night, not because everything will magically be solved immediately, but because the moment you decide to face reality without excuses, that's the moment everything starts to move. There's no written destiny, no predetermined ending. There's only the story you dare to tell and the story you resign yourself to living. Which one will you choose? And if you've made it this far, it's because a part of you knows you have to do it. Not for inspiration, not for passing motivation, but because the emptiness you feel every night is proof that something in your life is not working. And it's not a problem of luck, nor of circumstances, nor of the world being against you. It's a narrative problem. Your story isn't writing itself. It's being written with every decision you make, and more importantly, with every decision you avoid making. You think inaction is neutral, but it's not. Every time you postpone what you know you need to do, you're making an active decision to stay in the same place. And here comes the scary part. If you don't become the author of your story, someone else will do it for you. The expectations of others, social pressures, the routine that slowly numbs you. How many filler characters do you know in real life? People trapped in jobs they hate, in relationships that don't fulfill them, in bodies they can't stand, in minds that don't even belong to them anymore. Do you know why they're there? Because at some point, they decided it was easier not to decide, that it was more comfortable to go with the flow and convince themselves that this is life. But that's the most dangerous lie of all. This is life, is what people say who have already given up on writing their own story. You need to understand this once and for all. There's not just one script for you. There's not just one ending written. There are hundreds of versions of you waiting in the shadows, and each one depends on the choices you make. From today, it can be the version that keeps doing the same thing, dragging the same mistakes, finding excuses to stay the same. Or it can be the version that grabs the pen, sits at that table, and starts to dissect each damn mistake. No anesthesia. And I know what you're thinking. You don't have time, you don't have energy, you don't have clarity. Lieutenant, what you don't have is the courage to face what you know you'll find when you start writing. Because the problem isn't the lack of answers. The problem is you already know the answers, and you don't like them. You know what you need to change, what you're doing wrong, you know where you're failing, but accepting it is painful. Because accepting that you've been the architect of your own misery means accepting that you could have done it differently. And that sucks. It sucks a lot. But here's the twist. That pain is the only exit door, the only way out of stagnation. If you have the courage to look straight at what you've done with your life, you also have the power to change it. But most don't go that far. Most prefer to numb themselves with distractions, with empty entertainment, with the absurd hope that time will fix everything. Let me save you years of disappointments. Time doesn't fix anything if you don't use it to change. It only becomes the graveyard of all the versions of you that could have been. And here's where the story takes another turn. Because in this transformation process, there's something that people underestimate: the importance of silence. Think about the moments when you've truly understood something about yourself. It wasn't in the middle of the noise. It wasn't while scrolling on your phone looking for another distraction. It was in solitude, at night, in those seconds before sleep, when there's no escape but your own mind. That's why the method demands the early hours, because night is the only time of day when the world stops interrupting you. It's the only moment when there's no external noise, when no one expects anything from you, when at last you can hear yourself without interference. And here's the trick. If you're afraid to be alone with your thoughts, it's because you know there are monsters in there, and that's exactly what you need to face. The night is your editing room. It's the moment when you can cut scenes that no longer serve you, rewrite dialogues, change the tone of your story. You don't have to do it all in one night, but you have to start, because every minute you spend without taking control is another minute in which someone else does it for you. And if you need proof, think of Tarantino again. He didn't become a film genius because someone gave him permission. He didn't wait for the world to approve of him before he started writing. He sat in a solitary room and did it because he understood something you haven't fully grasped yet. You don't need anyone's permission to rewrite your story. But there's more. Something few people tell you when talking about personal change. Change isn't just about doing the right things. It's about stopping doing the wrong things. And this is where most people fail. They focus so much on adding new habits, on making endless lists of goals, on promising themselves that this time they'll change, that they forget the most basic thing. First, you have to cut what's rotten. Imagine that your life is a movie that you've been shooting non-stop for years. Badly done scenes, repeated takes, moments that make no sense. Before you shoot something new, you need to edit the old. So do it tonight. Write, but not only about what you want, but about what you have to let go of. That relationship that doesn't add anything, that habit that's destroying your body, that thought you repeat every day that keeps you trapped. Find them, point them out, and do what a good director would do. Eliminate them from the story. And don't get me wrong, this isn't magic. It's not a cheap motivation trick. It's not about writing a list and hoping the universe does the rest. It's about deciding to turn it into an action manual, looking at yourself in the mirror tomorrow, and knowing that this time, even if it's only for one night, you had the courage to face yourself without masks. Because if you do this, if you really do this, something will change inside you. It won't be immediate, it won't be easy, but the difference between a forgettable story and one that leaves a mark isn't in the perfection of the protagonist. It's in their ability to change course when everything seemed lost. Now tell me, will you keep being a secondary character in your own movie? Or will you sit down tonight and start writing the role you were born for? I'm going to tell you something no one has probably told you with enough clarity. There is no turning back. There's no sign on the road that tells you, now's the time. There's no safety net, no guarantees. There's only tonight. Only this decision. Only this moment. And if you wait too long, if you keep postponing it, if you keep running, one day you'll look back and realize there's no time left. That's the fear no one talks about. Not the fear of failing, not the fear of making mistakes. The real fear is waking up one day and realizing you have no margin left to change, that the script is too far along, that the opportunities have passed, that you've become what you swore you would never be. And the worst part is, it won't be a big dramatic moment. There won't be a cinematic climax with epic music in the background. Number 8, it will be subtle. It will be a series of small decisions that, before you know it, will have built the cage in which you'll spend the rest of your life. You have to make a decision now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Because every day you postpone is another day the world steals from you. And believe me, the world is happy to take the space you don't claim. If you don't decide who you are, someone else will do it for you. But here's the harshest part. No one is coming to save you. There's no secret mentor waiting for you. There's no invisible hand that will pull you out of the hole. No one is going to show up with a magical answer. The only person who can rescue you is you. And that shouldn't scare you. It should liberate you. Because if you are the problem, you are also the solution. Look around you. The world is full of people who live on autopilot. People who do the same thing every day, who complain about their life but never do anything to change it. You can't be one of them. You can't afford to be one of them. Because if you've made it this far, if you're still listening, it's because a part of you knows you're not made for mediocrity. And the only difference between those who change and those who stay stuck is this. The first ones decide to act before they feel ready. They don't wait for motivation to arrive. They don't wait for fear to disappear. They don't wait for everything to make sense. They act because they understand something most people never do. Fear doesn't disappear before you start. It disappears along the way. So, close your eyes for a second and visualize this. Tomorrow you wake up and everything is the same. Same excuses, same problems, same routine. A month passes, a year passes, 10 years pass. You're still in the same place. How does that feel? If that thought makes your stomach turn, then you already have your answer. You can't keep waiting. You can't keep postponing. Tonight, grab that pen, open that notebook, face the reality. Write what you've avoided writing. Take the time to dissect each one of your excuses. Do it with the brutality of a director who isn't afraid to cut scenes that don't work. Because at the end of the day, there are only two types of people in this world. Those who write their story, and those who let others write it for them. Which one will you be? If this video made you think, if there's a phrase that stuck with you, I want you to leave it in the comments. Write, I'm rewriting my story. Because if you've made it this far, it's because a part of you has already made the decision, even if you don't know it yet. And if you want more content like this, subscribe. But only if you're really ready to face the truth. There's no soft content here. We go raw, we go real. If you're still here, it's because you're looking for something more. Now go. Write. No more excuses.